All right, guys, let's get down to business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Autodesk Takeoff Core Training. My name is Adriel Navarro, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Today, we're going to start things off with a brief introduction, and then we'll move right into the product where I'll do a review of the key tools and workflows within Autodesk Takeoff. Autodesk Takeoff's integrated 2D and 3D quantification experience offers GCs a collaborative and unified view of quantities to maximize project scope visibility in real time. It also empowers estimators to create competitive bids faster by performing more accurate 2D takeoffs and generating automatic quantities from 3D models within a single takeoff solution. In today's webinar, we'll review a few workflows that exemplify just that. While the time allotted for today's webinar isn't enough to cover every detail of each of these subjects, by the time we're finished, you should be able to add team members to the project, configure the takeoff settings for the project, upload and publish sheets and models to your Autodesk Takeoff project, publish sheets from the Files tool, create takeoff packages and object types, perform 2D and 3D takeoffs, and finally review and export the takeoff data. Before we get started, I want to cover a few quick housekeeping items. First, this webinar was designed with the expectation that you've already been through some of the Autodesk Construction Cloud's Getting Started training and you're ready to start building off of some of those previous lessons. If this isn't the case, I don't want to discourage you from attending the session, just want to avoid the chance that you may feel lost. Having said that, after this webinar, I'll share with you all some additional support and training resources to fill in the blanks or to take you further in your Autodesk Takeoff education. Second, there is a lot of content to cover in a short amount of time. So to avoid any interruptions, we have muted everyone to keep background noise to a minimum. Third, however, should any questions come up during the webinar, I'd like to invite everyone to utilize Zoom's Q&A feature located at the bottom so we don't miss anyone's questions. Please feel free to put questions in there at any point during today's webinar. And finally, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that this webinar is being recorded and will be distributed to all who registered in case you'd like to review any of this content later on. As we get started, I want to briefly remind you of the Autodesk Construction Cloud and where Autodesk Takeoff fits in. The Autodesk Construction Cloud is our vision for connecting data, teams, and workflows across the entire project lifecycle. We support this vision through a collection of cloud-based product offerings that deliver best-in-class support for key project workflows. You may already be familiar with some of the products that make up the Autodesk Construction Cloud, whether that is Assemble, Building Connected, Pipe, BIM 360, or PlanGrid. This year, we introduced the first set of products on our new Autodesk Construction Cloud platform, including Autodesk Build, along with Autodesk BIM Collaborate for design collaboration and model coordination workflows, and the topic of today's webinar, Autodesk Takeoff for 2D and 3D takeoffs. We also introduced Autodesk Docs, which is the common data environment and the document management foundation for all projects on the new platform, delivering a single source of truth for all project stakeholders. The platform is rounded out by powerful data analytics tools delivered in Insight and an incredibly thorough but easy to use set of administration tools. Together, the Autodesk Construction Cloud helps builders, designers, estimators, and owners drive better business outcomes together. Wrapping up our introductions, let's go ahead and jump right into the product. Once we log into acc.autodesk.com, we're taken to our project list, and by default, we land at the Projects tab where we will see a list of all of the projects we're a part of. Due to time constraints, we won't go through the project creating process, but if you do need to learn more, please check out our admin courses on our learnacc.autodesk.com. Here in the project list, we see the project names, when the projects were created, and a search bar to search for projects by name. To access one of these projects, we'll simply just select it. To access Autodesk Takeoff, we'll select Takeoff from the product picker. Our first step today is to add team members who'll be performing takeoffs, followed by defining classification and measurement system settings for the project, then by uploading 2D and 3D files into our sheets and models to use during our takeoff. Finally, we'll create takeoff packages to organize our scopes of work and actually take off. Project administrators can manage all project members and their respective properties from the Members tool. To manage members, click Members from the left navigation to open the Members tool, and next, we'll click Add Members, followed by entering an email address for the members we wish to invite, or we can paste a list of emails separated by commas, tabs, spaces, or semicolons. Then we'll select a company or role for the members. Although it's totally optional, the company and role can be used to quickly apply the same permissions to multiple members at one time. We'll then choose the access level for the soon-to-be invited list. As project members in Takeoff, users are added with all permissions except member management. As project administrators, users have all permissions including member management. Next, we'll choose the product access level for the members to control what products the members can use on our project. Something to keep in mind here. The purchased products represent those products that your organization's account has purchased a subscription to. The products categorized as not purchased yet are those that your organization doesn't yet have a subscription to. By providing members access to these products, you are simply giving them access to use these products on your project. They still need to have access to a subscription to use the product. Members can either bring their own subscription to use on your project, they can be provided a subscription by an account administrator, or they can start a trial. Now we'll click Invite to send an email invitation to the members. If we need to edit a member's permissions, company, role, or product access, we can click on the member's name here in the list of members and edit accordingly in the member profile. Should a member need to be removed, we'll click the More menu and choose Remove Member. Now that we've added our project members, let's configure our takeoff settings for the project. Takeoff has classification and measurement settings that must be configured before you can perform takeoffs. Note that these settings cannot be changed once takeoff items have been created in the project. We'll select Packages in the side navigation bar and then click Settings. First, we'll choose the appropriate measurement system for our project, whether imperial or metric. Next, we'll choose a classification system. Selecting the drop-down reveals two options. We can use the sample assembly classification if this happens to be a test project, but a real project will require us to upload a custom classification system. The classification information is usually stored in estimating and cost systems and will need to be replicated within Autodesk Takeoff. Selecting Upload Custom Classification System pulls up a panel that directs us on how to add a custom classification system by selecting the arrow here. First, we need to download the Excel template. Once we open it, we'll see the instructions at the top. Do not delete these instructions before re-uploading this template. Once we've completed the Excel spreadsheet, we'll save it and upload it into Autodesk Takeoff by selecting Import Custom System. If we're using two different classification systems, we can choose a second system here. If you need to make minor edits or additions, you can export the custom classification, edit the file, and re-import it. Now that the packages settings are set, Let's upload and publish our 2D sheets. All project team members using Takeoff are giving manage permissions, which allows everyone to upload and publish sheets and models to Takeoff. Once a project has been created and we're ready to upload our 2D sheets, we'll click on Sheets and Models in the side navigation bar to initiate the upload and publish workflow, which follows 4 steps: uploading the sheets, selecting a version set, reviewing sheet numbers, and reviewing sheet titles and tags. After clicking on Sheets and Models, notice that we're in the 2D Sheets tab by default. Click Upload Files. In step 1, we'll upload our set of sheets by choosing files from our computer or by dragging them into the upload area. A set of sheets can be a single PDF packet made up of multiple sheets, or it can be individual PDFs for each sheet. Let's click Next to Version Set. Here in step 2, we will give this version set a name and an issuance date. If we're uploading a new version of sheets, we'll enter a version set name here. Often we can find the name in the revision block on the drawings that we're uploading. We'll also select an issuance date from the calendar. Keep in mind that the issuance date dictates the chronological order for the sheets in the project, so it's important to select the correct date. We recommend using the date the drawings were issued by the design team. Once the dates have been entered, click on Next to Sheet Numbers. We'll scroll through this list to review the sheet numbers. We can see the file name, the sheet thumbnail, the sheet number that was extracted, and the revision history from left to right. We can easily compare the title block of the sheet with the extracted sheet number for accuracy. If any sheet numbers were not extracted properly, we have the ability to edit them. If there's only a handful of sheet numbers to edit, simply click into the sheet number field and edit these numbers one by one. If we need to edit sheet numbers in bulk, we'll select the sheets by using the selection boxes here. Notice how we're able to remove sheets that perhaps don't belong in the set, and we can also rotate the drawings if needed. Once we've selected all necessary sheets, we'll have 2 ways to edit sheet numbers. The first way, we can select Draw Sheet Number Area, where we'll draw an area large enough to capture sheet numbers on all selected sheets. We'll zoom in into the title block, select the drawing tool, draw out the area, and click Save. The second option is we can use the Edit Sheet Number options here. We can use the file names as sheet numbers, number them sequentially, or edit with rules. If we want to edit with rules, we can click Add a Rule, where we'll then add sheet number characters, trim characters, keep characters, or replace characters. Now, how would we use these? For example, our sheets may not be ideal, or perhaps they're scanned, in which case our OCR scans the sheets to read and extract the text. Because they're scanned, the OCR may not recognize zeros and replace them with O's or ones with L's. When that happens, we'll use the Replace Character rule. When we're done reviewing our sheet numbers, we'll click Next to Titles and Tags. On this page, we can see the extracted sheet numbers, the sheet thumbnail, the sheet titles, and tags. Similar to sheet numbers, sheet titles are extracted automatically, but they're not extracted from the sheet titles block by default. Rather, they're extracted from the index sheet if it's been uploaded. If there is no index sheet, or if for any reason sheet titles weren't extracted properly, we can always edit them. We can click into the sheet title field and edit them one by one, which is recommended if we only have a handful of sheet titles to edit. If we need to edit sheet titles in bulk, we'll select the sheets by using the selection boxes here. And once we've selected all necessary sheets, we again have 2 ways to edit the titles. Similar to how we edited sheet numbers, we can select Draw Sheet Title Area, or we can edit with rules. Once we're done reviewing sheet titles, in this last column, we see tags. Tags allow us to group and find sheets quickly from the field. If sheets follow AIA naming standards, sheets will be automatically tagged by discipline. In other words, A sheets will be tagged architectural, C sheets civil, E electrical, and so on. However, if you'd like, you can always enter custom tags here. If we'd like to adjust the row height to make it easier to review this screen, we can do so here. After sheet titles and tags have been reviewed, we'll click Publish Sheets. To upload 3D models, we'll select the 3D Models tab in the Sheets and Models tool, followed by Upload Models. Let's select Revit files by uploading them from our computer or dragging and dropping them into this box. Depending on file size, it may take several minutes for the upload to complete. It is important to note that we suggest waiting for the model to finish uploading before clicking Done, because navigating to another tool within Autodesk like Home or Packages cancels the upload. Uploaded models appear under the 3D Models tab here, and we may see all available published sheets and models in the Takeoff viewer. Keep in mind that only one view from a Revit file containing multiple views is published to the sheets and models in Takeoff. If the defined default 3D view from Revit exists, Takeoff will publish it. If there is no defined default 3D view, but there are Revit published settings for the model that define which 3D views to publish, Takeoff publishes the defined view with the largest size. If there is no defined default 3D view and no Revit published settings for the model exist, Takeoff publishes a 3D view generated by the view extractor. Once sheets are published, they're visible to project members. Project members are notified through email that new or updated sheets are available. Now let's take a quick pause and talk about the Files tool. The Files tool lets project teams have a centralized repository for documents that are essential to the project. The Files tool is universal across the Autodesk Construction Cloud products, meaning that files uploaded here will be accessible from Autodesk Build, Collaborate, or Takeoff all the same. We won't go over how to upload files here, but before we move on, I'd like to show you how files like construction drawings can be published to our Sheets and Models tool so we can perform takeoffs on them. From the Files tool, we can click the box next to our chosen file, followed by Publish to Takeoff Sheets and Models. This will prompt the 4-step process we recently covered, where you'll follow the same steps to publish the sheets for Takeoff. Now that we've uploaded our sheets and models, let's begin our takeoff process, which is done within the Packages tool. In Autodesk Takeoff, a package organizes and contains all takeoff data related to one scope of work in your project. The concept of a package may be familiar to you as scope of work or as a bid package. As you know, there can be multiple packages for a single construction project, and each package organizes the takeoff work relevant to its part of the project. In Takeoff, you'll perform takeoff for one specific package at a time. The takeoff inventory is the primary output of work done within a takeoff package. To add a new takeoff package, click Packages in the side navigation bar, and then click Create Package and enter a title for it. Takeoff packages are usually organized and named by their scope of work or trade division, but you can use any structure you prefer. Click Create Package here to confirm the title, create the package, and add it to the packages list for the project. If we need to edit the package name or perhaps delete the entire package, click the selection box next to the package, followed by Edit or Delete. Within Takeoff Packages, we'll use Takeoff Types to organize and describe groups of takeoff objects with shared properties. To create Takeoff Types, we'll choose our newly created structural package. This opens the Takeoff viewer with a default view of the Sheets and Models panel. We'll click the Takeoff Types icon here to open the Takeoff Types panel which is where we'll create and manage our takeoff types. The panel displays a list of all takeoff types in use for the selected package. In our case, we have no takeoff types created yet. Let's create one by first clicking the blue plus icon and completing the Create Takeoff Type form. We'll enter a name for the takeoff type, such as structural columns. Then we'll select the tool we want to use when taking off objects of this type. From among our options, which are area, linear, count, and BIM, we'll select count. Note that the BIM takeoff type can only be used to select objects in 3D models, which are covered later on in the webinar. Now we may edit the appearance of the takeoff tool markup, such as its color, border, or shape, depending on the tool you're using. We can also add a text description, which is strongly recommended, although totally optional. Next, from this drop-down menu, select the classification to use for objects with this takeoff type. This drop-down is populated with the classification system we applied to the project in package settings. The final required field is output. If we want to calculate the cubic yardage of concrete needed for these cast-in-place columns we're counting, we can enter it here by clicking on the plus icon next to secondary output. We'll choose our classification and output settings and then enter the information to calculate the second output, whether entering a formula or inputting the dimensions in the fields below. If entering a formula, we'll click on the square root icon here and then click on the text field and press the down arrow key to select the desired formula from the formula menu that opens, or we can enter a formula of our own. After we've completed the details of our takeoff type, we can click Save to confirm our entries and save the object type to our takeoff package. This takeoff type may now be used when taking off these types of objects within this specific package. We can also import takeoff types by clicking on the import icon next to the blue plus icon. This will open the Import Takeoff Types dialog, which allows us to select a project, followed by a takeoff package, and the specific takeoff types from the package that we're importing into our project. Users will be warned if project units or classifications don't match, and although duplicates are allowed, the names will be appended with a number to make them easily identifiable. After making our import selection, we'll click Import to bring in these takeoff types into the package that we're currently in. Let's say we want to edit this tile takeoff type to be specific to this project takeoff, and we want to account for 30% waste on the material during installation. We can edit the takeoff type by clicking here, which opens the takeoff type form. We can edit all the properties as needed, but sticking with our material waste example, we can add that formula to the primary output by clicking the square root icon to toggle the formula field. This time we'll enter a formula such as area asterisk 1.3 for an area-based waste factor. Now that we've created our package and takeoff types, we can begin our takeoff. First, we have to select our sheet and/or model that we're going to take off on for this package. We may scroll through our list to locate our desired sheet, or we can use the search bar to locate the sheet by title or number. We can also sort our list by name, title, date modified, or simply reverse the sort order. The filter icon here allows us to narrow our search by tag, version set, document type, or sheets and models with takeoff in progress or completed. Finally, we may bookmark sheets and models by selecting the bookmark icon, which brings them to the top of the list for the specific takeoff package that we're in. These bookmarks are both package and user specific. Once we click on the sheet we want to do a takeoff on, it'll open in the takeoff viewer. If the scale for the sheet has not been set, we can do so one of two ways. We can click Scale Not Set at the top of the sheet in the viewer, or select the caliper from the viewer toolbar at the bottom. Then, we'll select 2 points on the sheet over a known distance. Keep in mind that for vector-based PDF sheets, we must snap to 2 points during this process. After we've selected our 2 points, a calibration dialog will open where we'll define the size and unit of the dimension we drew, followed by clicking Set Calibration. Now, anyone that visits this sheet in any package will have a calibrated sheet to work off of. To navigate our sheet or model, we have the Viewer toolbar. The first set of tools are navigational, with the Selection tool selected by default. The Selection tool does exactly as it's called. It will allow you to select takeoff instances on a sheet or objects in a model. The Pan tool allows us to move around the sheet. Fit to View will show us our entire sheet if no takeoff instances are highlighted, and if they are, it'll zoom the screen view to fit the selection. Window Zoom gives us 2 options. Zoom allows us to home in or back out of the sheet by clicking and holding our mouse followed by moving up and down. Window Zoom enables us to drag a box to focus in on a selected area on the sheet. The mini-map icon displays a small navigation map in 2D sheets to help provide context. We can use the tabs on the Settings dialog box to customize the viewer. We may edit performance and display settings, navigational tools and visual quality, and change image environment and lighting. A description of each setting is displayed within the dialog. Click the Restore All Default Settings button to do exactly that across all tabs. These default settings provide the recommended balance between visual quality and viewer performance. Finally, we can choose to view the model or sheet in full screen mode. The middle set of tools are takeoff specific, and we'll cover those as we continue performing takeoffs. With our sheet calibrated, we can now start our takeoff. Whether you're creating takeoff types ahead of time or as you go, we have to click on the takeoff type we wish to use. We'll start with our structural columns. Once I click on the takeoff type, the cursor changes from the Selection tool to the assigned takeoff type, in this case our Count tool. We can zoom in where needed and click each individual column to start counting them. As you can see, the quantities begin to populate next to the takeoff type as we go. To disengage the tool, we'll click on the Selection tool, click on the takeoff type, or simply press Escape on our keyboards. This then allows us to switch to different tools as needed. To take off another type on this same sheet, click on it and get back to business. Linear takeoffs can be done in single segments or using a polyline for multi-segment linear measurements. To draw a single segment, click and hold and then drag to the endpoint. Upon releasing our click, we have our single segment measurement. To use the polyline, we can click different points on our sheet to begin our measurement. Press Enter or double-click your mouse to end the measurement if you've reached your last point. The area takeoff is very similar to the polyline, where we'll click different points to create our area shape or click and drag. Double-click or press Enter to close the shape if you're clicking different points on the sheet. With our area takeoff, we may find ourselves overlapping takeoff instances or maybe falling short and coming back to include missed areas. Should we have 2 or more areas that we need to combine into one, we can select them by clicking and dragging to engage the box selection, or click on each instance while holding the Control key or Command if you're on Apple on our keyboard. After the instances are selected, we'll click the Combine Cutout tool in our Viewer toolbar and select Combine to convert the separate takeoff instances into one. Same applies if we have 2 areas that overlap. we can select one of the two and click Cut Out to remove the overlapping area. This tool can also be reached from the right-click menu. Earlier, we added additional formulas to these takeoff types, such as waste and concrete volume. To see those computations, click on the More menu next to the specific takeoff type, followed by Detailed Takeoff. This shows us a breakdown of each takeoff type instance, and at the bottom, the computation of concrete volume needed up to this point in time in our takeoff. If we visit our area takeoff with the added material waste formula, we'll again see each measured instance, but if we hover over each quantity, we'll see the actual measurement along with the measurement including our waste factor. Along with the detailed takeoff view, we can duplicate takeoffs, which will prompt us to edit the properties that may be unique to this new takeoff type and save. You don't have to start from scratch if some of your items are similar, but maybe only need to change in color or title. We can also delete and reassign takeoff types, but we'll go over reassigning in a little bit. To continue our takeoffs on a different sheet, we'll click on the Sheets and Models icon, select our new sheet, and have at it. You'll see existing takeoff types available for selection, or we can create new ones as needed. To conduct a takeoff on a 3D model, we'll select the 3D model to open it. We'll see a familiar toolbar below, which lets us navigate the model, view properties, and more. To begin our 3D model takeoff, we'll choose the object in the model that we're performing a takeoff on and click the plus button to create a new takeoff type. Though the name for this takeoff type automatically populates depending on the type name in the model, we can change this if necessary. As with other takeoff types, we'll assign a classification and output, but because we're creating this takeoff type from a 3D model, we also have the option for model mapping, which allows us to define which model properties are used to calculate the output. Since we selected cubic yardage, the model mapping defaults to volume. But let's say the selected Revit object doesn't have a volume property. We'll inspect the object's properties by clicking here to figure out how we can calculate the volume. For example, the object may have a length, width, and thickness instead. To add more objects to the same property, we'll select the object, open the right-click menu, and click on Select All Flat Slab 5-inch. This will select all the objects with the shared property, from which we can then click on the blue check mark next to the takeoff type to add the quantities to our takeoff. If we want to make sure that we've taken off all the items in this 3D building, we have the Form Clusters command, which breaks down the building to all of its distinct categories from Revit. We can see that in this case, we haven't taken off all of the floor items, so I can click and repeat the process. Same applies for any other item in the model. To see a cumulative view of all takeoff items across all sheets and models, we'll open the inventory. We can reach the inventory by opening a package and selecting the inventory icon, which opens the inventory panel. Although the panel opens across the bottom of the page, we can pop it into a new window and move it into a different location on our screen or a different monitor. We can also change how we view our inventory by grouping items in the view by primary or secondary classification, document name, or takeoff type. Even further, we can move the columns to display the information in whichever order best suits our needs by toggling the columns we want active and changing their order of appearance from left to right by dragging and dropping accordingly. Clicking a line item in the inventory reveals information about the takeoff instances for that specific item, a detail that appears in a small instance view panel to the right of the inventory panel. In this instance view, we can view quantity details of the selected instance, fit the view to show the instance in the sheet or model, we can delete it, or reassign takeoff instances. Speaking of reassigning, Let's say that some of the tile quantities we measured earlier are now going to be carpet. If the carpet takeoff type already exists within our package, we can select the instances here and click on Reassign, followed by choosing the takeoff type we're reassigning them to from the dropdown and clicking Reassign to confirm. If we need to view the sheet or model that this takeoff instance is on, we can select the document name here to open it in the takeoff viewer above. Once the takeoff package is complete, we can export the inventory data to an Excel file, which will be organized by the current inventory grouping. To export takeoff inventory data for this specific package, we'll click Export here to automatically download and save the exported Excel file to our computer. If we'd like to export takeoff inventory data across all packages in the project, we'll return to our Packages tab by clicking the X in the upper right corner and click Export All. We can then choose how we'd like the inventory data organized, followed by clicking Export. This will download an Excel file with all the takeoff inventory data across all packages in the project, which we'll then use for our bids. As we wrap up this webinar, I recognize that we've covered a lot and you may not remember everything we discussed. So I want to take a moment and point out a handful of great resources to help continue your educational journey with Autodesk Construction Cloud. First, if you enjoyed today's webinar, I'd strongly suggest checking out some of the other upcoming ACC live webinars scheduled throughout the month, which explore some of the other tools and products within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And if you're having any difficulty making the live sessions fit into your schedule, we also offer the ability to view any of these webinars on demand at your convenience. Next, I'm excited to introduce you all to the newest edition of our Autodesk learning offerings, the ACC Learning Center. In today's webinar, we only had enough time to introduce you to a few of the amazing tools that the Autodesk Construction Cloud has to offer. The ACC Learning Center houses a library of self-paced training content that will take you through every detail of our unified platform, with each subject area broken down into short, easily consumable videos. We also understand that webinars and training videos aren't for everyone, and you may require a dedicated specialist who can customize a training program to your specific business needs. If that's the case, I'd highly recommend reaching out to our delivery services team, who has worked with thousands of customers worldwide to provide an effortless training and deployment experience for both the office and the field. For a more immediate solution, you can get product help and contact support directly from within the product at acc.autodesk.com. If you have a question while you're working, click the questions icon and choose Help to access the product help, or click Contact Support to open the support hub. Thank you to everyone who had questions, and thank you everyone for attending. We've now come to the end of our time today, so if you have any additional questions, I encourage you to reach out to our support team or check out some of those additional training resources I referenced earlier. Everyone here at Autodesk is excited to continue helping support all of the great work that you do every day. Thanks again for joining me today, and have a wonderful rest of your week.